So there is a charity called Oxfam that released a cartoon that portrayed a J.K. Rowling-esque looking character that's very, very haggard. It is a very unflattering image with the word Terf on there. And then after people complained, they took it down, which as far as I'm concerned is all but evidence that that's exactly what they meant for it to be, right? Like if they had just left it, they could have claimed it had been anyone. But it says, to celebrate Pride Month, Oxfam released a short cartoon on its Twitter account describing the hardships of LGBTQ people around the world and how they are preyed on by hate groups online and offline. I'm just picturing like roving mobs of people on Reddit, I guess, or 4chan. It says one of the villains of the short film. I love that I love that they're villains. They're not people with opposing views. They're not people who disagree with you. They're villains. This is what we're talking about earlier about one-dimensional characters and the inability to understand other people's arguments.
It's so ugly and gross.
So it says, the film produced by the Bangalore-based Falana Films is a red-haired woman who has a pin attached to her blouse reading TERF, the acronym which of course stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. Here's an image of it, ladies and gentlemen. I will put it on screen here shortly. So there it is. And what do you think? Do you think that they took it down because see what it is? If you guys remember, I think back in February, somebody called her an alt-right Yahtzee. Right? And she said, my lawyers are going to be talking to your lawyers. And that guy sent the apology real quick. Because if anybody has the money to just bury you in lawyers, it's the lady who has made a property so important to people that even the people that hate her use it even though they hate her.
When you have billions or $1 billion, you can just burn money on lawyers making someone's life hell. And if I were J.K. Rowling, I would absolutely do that.
Absolutely.
I'd love to have fucking money.
$20 super chat here from Rico Cantrell says, boys.
Amen.
Can we get a weigh-in on the Punisher? He's like the Batman, but for men.
I didn't know Batman wasn't for men.
I love, I just recently rewatched, in fact, this is going to be my pitch for this again. Go watch Punisher Warzone with Ray Stevenson, if for no other reason than it's just a mega R-rated movie. It's a hard R, as they say. It's the Punisher with a hard R. It's really, really good. It's super violent. The gore is fantastic. And I do mean there's actual gore. It was just such a long time ago, and I was always... When Punisher Warzone came out, I was almost always in an altered state. So I didn't remember all of the violence. Like, he just shoots this dude and his head comes off, and I'm like, I don't remember that at all. It's totally worth it. It's either on Peacock or on Paramount Plus, but do go watch it. And I love the Punisher. I love that version of the character, but I am also very much a fan of the John Bernthal one, though I don't have any interest in seeing him on Disney Plus. I'll stick to Daredevil and, of course, to when he had his own series, though it wasn't as good as his appearance on season 2 of Daredevil.
I've never seen anything related to the Punisher.
Oh, okay. How do you guys feel about the fact that they very clearly, I think somebody said recently, and somebody in the chat who's more tuned in on this can correct me if I'm wrong, but they turned the Punisher into a cuck in a recent comic because Marvel really hates they don't hate the Punisher, they hate the people who love the Punisher. Because it's
absolutely.
They hate the people that love the
Marvel. It seems like the comic book companies that make comic books do not like their fans anymore. They've been trying
their fans are middle-aged white men.
Yeah, they've been trying to run those fans out and attract new fans, and I don't think they're doing the attract new fans thing. I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
You want to talk about self-inserts? That's where the self-inserts are in the comic books right now. I'm not Starfire.
Well, also, I think that a lot of people don't understand that just because you change your branding to appeal to a different demographic doesn't mean that demographic's going to decide that they suddenly like you.
Seriously.
Those people weren't reading comics before, not because they disagreed with the way the characters were presented, but because they weren't interested in reading a comic book. They're not going to start reading comic books just because you went, I'm making a comic book that appeals to your ideologies.
$20 is
Yep, we got a $20 super chat here from Derp State Surveillance. A wonderful bird is the pelican. His beak can hold more than his belly can. He keeps in his beak enough food for a week, but damned if I know how the hell he can.
That's a rhyme.
Yes, he's been known to do that. Thank you, Derp State. I'm starting to wonder if Derp State Surveillance is actually Tad Bromwell. maybe.
Perhaps.
Who's that?
Perhaps. Tad Bromwell is our FBI agent, the guy who watches the house. I named him a long time ago.
We love him.
I imagined a world where there's this guy who's been assigned to like be the surveillance guy who like illegally surveils Timcast, and he starts to look at it like a reality TV show where like he's got popcorn, he's watching Cast Castle, he's rooting for he's rooting for specific people. Like he's like, oh man, he got the shaft this week, and like now he's like he really likes Tim, like but he does. So he's like kind of playing cover for Tim with the FBI.
So he's a hero. He's a good guy. He's on our side.
He's on our side.
Mary's his sidekick.
Yes.
Mary's his son.
Mary's a Fed.
Well, you know, she's on vacation. Where is she on vacation? Quantico? I have no idea. That's is France another word for Quantico? I don't know. So yeah, like okay, back to J.K. Rowling. Thoughts? Do you guys feel like this is the thing where they're tempting fate with somebody with that much money?
I hope so.
Is this
probably.
a suable offense though?
I don't know. Like I think the idea is that it doesn't matter if it's suable. She could just do it and have it get thrown out of court.
It doesn't matter at all. Like the process is the punishment.
Yeah.
So if she's got that kind of money, well, she does. She has the kind of money where she could just go ahead and do whatever she wants. She could continue to file like
Bogus
lawsuits
suits.
over and over and over, and they could all get thrown out. But the person that she's accusing of slandering her or whatever it is, they have to go and defend themselves every time. So every time she could possibly hire someone to go through someone's entire history, find every time they've talked badly about her and be like, this person I'm suing, this person I'm suing. And if it costs her $10 million, she doesn't notice because she's got that much money.
Yeah.
She's
This
like,
is why I stay home.
I'm right with you, and as far as I'm concerned, like it is the funniest thing in the world to watch somebody who, if you want a lesson in social conformity, she is your cautionary tale that if you step out of line on anything, and I do mean anything, you become an enemy to the group, meaning that she has a hell of a lot more in common with the people that hate her now than the people that seem to like her. Let's face it.
Yep.
Like, and we're being a little bit hyperbolic here because I do believe that the average person, much
Probably
like
doesn't care
know or doesn't care. Just like we were talking about, like people that are going to go see The Flash don't know or care who Ezra Miller is. They're not paying attention. The average person who loves Harry Potter and goes and takes their kid to Universal to go to what's it called?
Harry Potter.
Wizarding World is like they don't care. Like they don't know or nor do they care.
And with Harry Potter, like as a concept, I think that so much attention is being paid to the author that it's now starting to hurt properties that have nothing to do with her views.
Yeah.
And it's very strange to me watching a video game get made that she didn't have any royalties for.
Yeah.
That she basically made nothing from aside from whatever initial payment they gave her. And the game went out of its way on a few occasions to kind of be like, hey, we're not associated with her views and all that. And yet when I have asked people, why is J.K. Rowling transphobic? Like there's so much hate here. Nobody has given me a cogent answer. I still don't know what she did.
It's because they never link to the tweets because the tweets are so benign it doesn't matter. We got a $20 super chat here from Rhaegar Targaryen. Says, look up Mel Gibson apologizes for his drunken anti-Semitic tirade and brace yourself for how the journalist, quote with quotation marks, still tried to get him in the interview. He apologized. We are either for cancel culture or we are against it.
Yeah, there's always got to be a path to redemption when you cancel somebody.
One of the saddest.
No, there doesn't.
Say it again.
Based.
No, there doesn't. Like we can say that there.
I think there should be. Is what I'm saying. Yeah,
but there doesn't, and the people that are most likely to cancel someone don't have one.
Yeah.
There is no redemption because the left looks at all this stuff and treats this stuff like a religion, and in the leftist kind of religious aspect, they don't have a path to redemption. There is no Christ figure or priest that you can confess your sins to that can absolve you. Once you've actually committed the sin of whatever they're accusing you of, there is no way out. That's why, like, when it comes to like the way that cis white males are treated, there is no redemption for a cis white male except for joining the LGBT group and no longer being cis white male. Like if you become some type of some type of polyamorous or something that could give you the protection of the LGBT group, then that's the only way out of it, and it's totally a religion.
That'll be my move. I'm gonna be like, sorry, honey, but I need to get out of this bind. So we're getting 3 more girlfriends.
All you gotta
People
do.
said that about
You're poly, right?
people said that about Jonathan Majors when everything that was coming out about Jonathan Majors about with his arrest. They're like, why is this happening? But Ezra Miller's just left alone. So he's like, he better come out as non-binary real quick, because why is he being allowed? Why is he not facing the same repercussions that? Why isn't he getting the same treatment that Ezra Miller was given? Because he doesn't have the shield of virtue that they applied to it, and the same thing it would apply to J.K. Rowling, oddly enough, because she refuses to apologize because she knows it won't matter. She understands that all of the apologies in the world will never be seen as a sign of honest attempt at ameliorating hurt from someone. It will only be seen as one thing, and that's weakness. It will never be seen as something that's actually beneficial, because they don't see it in that terms. They see it as a push for power and control over people that they believe can help them achieve their social ends. And she is a powerful figure that, if they were able to coerce her onto their side, would be hugely beneficial for them. And oddly enough was for a long time, because she is a devout feminist.
100%. It does help them if she's on their side, but if she doesn't bend the knee, and they can manage to harm her legacy, harm her reputation, then they win as well. And the way that when the left tries to infiltrate any kind of establishment or any kind of fandom or whatever, either they assimilate it like the Borg, or they destroy it, and either is okay with them, because if it's destroyed, then it's not harming their argument. And what?
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly.
When the trailers came out and they said evil cannot create.
It's true. It is true. And the left doesn't. The left's whole deal is to deconstruct things. So if your entire philosophy is built on trying to find the good in something by taking away all of the bad things, because that's what deconstruction is. You pick apart at all the bad things that you see. But when you pull the bad things away, it tends to destroy things. It doesn't leave things in place. It's not like the world has got a good seed inside of everything, and you just have to pick apart all the bad things. That's not the way the structure of reality is, but that's the way the left behaves. They don't create anything. They can only destroy.
And I think that will continue, because they, like we were talking about earlier, they're the ones who infiltrate these companies, and they're the ones who take over these properties, and they don't, first of all, they don't love them. They don't love them the way that the actual fans do, because they don't see them as art. They see them as a means to achieve some type of socio-political end, which is depressing in and of itself.
They don't. It doesn't matter if they see it as art, because the way that they look at art is to destroy art. That's all postmodern art is. When you are a postmodern art critic and someone presents a urinal and they say, "Oh, this is art," and the whole point of it is to say, "I can't do real art, so I'm going to imply that real art is not of value. So this is a urinal, and what do you do with a urinal? You piss on it. Yep. So art is something you piss on."
Well, a ton of it's also just money laundering.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a side thing. That's not the actual artists that are creating the art, right? Like, so if your idea of art is like, a nun taking a dump, the point that you're making is you want to defile the things that are good. Again, it is the focus on destroying and tearing down things. And a lot of times the people that are creating the postmodern art and the art where you have to find the good in it yourself, or it's for you to interpret, those people can't actually create art. Abstract and modern art, like postmodern art, it's all just in the eye of the beholder. It's like, how do you see this as art? And most of the time it's cynical, it's ugly.
It's always cynical.
It's ugly, it's deconstructing, and it's not creating anything of value.
This is one of the most common arguments that I have with Shane. Because he argues that not only is art not dead, this is a great period for art. And to which I respond that I don't care if a lesbian with a banjo made a good song on SoundCloud. What I'm talking about as art is, you know, that piece where we all as a culture are seeing and reflecting upon it. We don't have that anymore.
Well, I don't know if that's ever going to happen anymore because of how decentralized everything is now with the internet. Like, you're going to go to where you're going to go to get your, like I said, if you made a tweet recently where you said, like, I'm genuinely terrified by where Brett finds himself on the internet based on the memes I send you. Mm-hmm. Like
I am.
We all live in different worlds based on where we get our information, and so where you see your art says a lot more about you, maybe, or what the algorithm has shown you in your art says more about you than maybe about art itself.
Yeah, and I hate to be that guy, but I feel like the last bit of art, sorry to interrupt, the last bit of art that we had was something along the lines of Breaking Bad, where it was a compelling show with seemingly C-list to B-list actors at the time. They all had chemistry. The story was interesting, compelling. It did seem, you know, a little bit long, and it went a little slow at times, but then the payback was incredible.
I think that there's also a tendency to observe the past through the lens of our present state, and for people to look at things and go, oh, well, I'm going to kind of take a middle ground here, I guess, between where you and Shane are, and say that art's not dead, but art's so heavily commodified and accessible that what is actually special, what stands out from the rest of the artistic world, is so much harder to find than it used to be. Art used to be a high society thing where stuff went in a museum and everybody who could afford to went, and they all stood there and they discussed the art and all of that. Now you go on, you know, Instagram, you can find a 100 different versions of the same drawing of an Overwatch character, and they're probably all going to be really technically good, but what's special about them? And I think that what we're missing is the
reflection,
the uniqueness of art, and the limited accessibility of genuinely good art has devalued art as a whole, because now there's nothing to look forward to. You hop on the internet, you can find a drawing that's photorealistic, and you're like, okay, well, I guess. The artist is still incredibly talented. It's just that their art has become so common that it's not as valuable anymore.
I think what we're missing is the impact that it can create, and that I have an opinion, and all three of you can have a different opinion, and they're all valid because it has layers and it has depth, and it allows itself to be interpreted in many ways. But we live in a world where, like, going back to our previous conversation, is that everything is an expression of modernity, and modernity sucks.
And they don't want you to interpret it your own way. They want to tell you how to interpret it because they're scared that you're going to come to the wrong conclusion because they're elitist. I also want to go back to what Phil was saying. The number one thing that I judge a lot of media on, and this may not be fair to the art itself, is sincerity. Or in a lot of ways, like when I watch a movie like The Mother, there's no joy in it. There's no joy in the filmmaking. The best I could have said is there's some visually stunning shots of Alaska, but there's not joy in that. Yeah. And a lot of characters that are done these days, there's no joy in these characters. They're written as cynical. Yeah. They're written as dark. They're written as brooding. Like, and it's like they forget. Like in a lot of when they reference that, they reference like Nolan making dark and gritty Batman. I'm like, yeah, but the point of that movie at the end is that even the bad guys choose humanity over killing the other group of people.
Yeah,
like
which would have happened.
It's that hope shines through.
There's hope shines through. Yeah. That's not dark and gritty. If anything, that's beautifully hopeful.
Yeah.
So just because the tone of the movie is one thing, it's like there's no nuance to it. And I grade and judge a lot of the movies and television I see. Is like, is that a character that I feel has something in it that I want to see, which is a little bit of joy, a little bit of humanity. And I see almost none of that in the stuff that's put out these days. Very little of it. So I don't know what that has to do with, or even if you want to tie this back into J.K. Rowling, there was a lot of darkness in those books that get drawn back in there. Also, I'm a fan of her. She has a TV show called CB Strike about a character named Cormoran Strike. It's a detective novel that she writes under a pen name of Robert Galbraith. And in that show, the character of Robert Galbraith is portrayed as a more stoic detective character, but he has his assistant, the lady who works with him, and she's joyful. There's a lot of she's grown as a character, but there's an inherent warmth to that character that isn't necessarily relevant to the story, but contrasts very well with his character. That even pulling off something like that these days feels impossible in the climate we live in, because you'd have to just make both of them dark and depressing and gritty. And I find that to be an extremely frustrating indictment on just how cynical Hollywood is. Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.